What's cracking, everybody? XehrFelrose here, bringing you some Pokemon Go Battle League content. Today's video, we're taking a look at my top picks and teams here in the upcoming Great League Galar Cup. First time we've ever had this meta. We've had the Little Cup version a couple of weeks back at the beginning of the season. Now the big boys are coming out to play here in this Great League edition of the meta, and we're going to go through some teams as well as some picks in these rankings. I just want to roll down these rankings first, though, just because it's always worth kind of picking what Pokemon we think are going to be good in a vacuum, and then we can put them on some teams, right? So Galarian Weezing is at the very top in its shadow form. Now, PSA real quick, today is the last day of the Legendary Heroes event, where the bonus is that you can evolve your regular Coughing into a Galarian Weezing. This also applies to shadow Coughings that you may have in your storage, and I would say it's better to have the shadow Weezing even if it's not perfect PvP IVs. If you have a shadow at all, it's just worth doing because you never know when we're going to get an event bonus like this again. But that being said, make sure today, Tuesday, the 1st of October, that's going to be the final day we have to do that until I believe 8 p.m. local time. So just keep that in mind. We also got Diggersby, Mandibuzz, and a slew of poisons and fairies and a couple ground boys, or mud boys, ground types. There's the English I was looking for. There will be a few of those as well. So there's other, special, pretty especially good Pokemon. Like I like Quillfish. Drapeon's going to be a pretty big player in the meta. Alolan Ninetales looks to be pretty good. We also have things like Drifblim, and then further down the rankings, I would say they probably cap off right around 48 with Golisopod. That's probably the most fringe meta things. There's going to be some things down lower. Someone's going to make them work. But as far as what you need to be aware of and cautious of when playing in this meta, I think that running around the number 50 rankings is going to be about where I would probably draw that line. But I really like some of these Pokemon. Malamar's also down there in the 40s. There's a few really good picks. So let's take a look at the first team on the list here. And that's going to be your top, basically, this is the best team, or this is the best, rated on paper team. Not to say it's the best in practice, but as far as PvPoke is concerned, this is about as good as it gets. So what we're doing here is we have a Mandibuzz lead, and we've got double poison in the back. Toxapex Mandibuzz looks to be the most effective core in the meta, and then we also are going to have the safe switch poisons, which are there to draw out your opponent's ground types or something else that perhaps your Toxapex doesn't want to deal with. Most of the time, it's going to end up being a ground type because grounds are honestly an integral part of this meta, especially Gastrodon. With that Mud Slap, you want to be able to grab that out of the opponent's backline and get it out of the Toxapex's way so it can hopefully sweep. Also, most of the Mud Slappers are mostly walled or do not do anything to Mandibuzz, which is also worth noting, as you can safely absorb any energy the opponent may get from a farm down with that. But I have Quillfish on the paper team here. You could use a Shadow Drapion. Incredibly good letter grades here for a for limited Great League meta. And really, this team has no common things that beat the whole team, right? You're going to have Ferrothorn, and then you've got a couple electric types, and then that's pretty much the list, right? So things that are not going to be super popular to start, but I'm sure something like Ferrothorn is probably going to find its way into the meta. So just keep that in mind, but obviously, again, that's why we're holding, these two poisons in the back. Use the safe switch to bait out the answer to the second one, and then try to sweep with that Toxapex. And just something right before we get into the next team, right? So all of these Pokemon, they're like all the water poisons, and even the poisons in general, most of them are interchangeable. So if you I don't have an XL Toxapex, I don't have a Quillfish, then you can just swap them out as you need. Most Pokemon in this meta are pretty interchangeable as long as they're of a similar typing. You can usually do just as well with replacing any of those. So the next team up here is going to be featuring Alolan Ninetales with double ground. Now, you could choose your grounds. Again, there's Whiscash, there's Quagsire, there's Gastrodon, there's Diggersby, and I know there's going to be definitely some people who don't have an XL Diggersby. I didn't for the longest time. I honestly didn't finish it until not too long ago. But anyway, Gastrodon, Quagsire, Whiscash, they're all options here that you can use as long as you're still fulfilling that similar role. But I want to talk about Shadow Quagsire for a moment, because that thing has such great coverage in this meta between its water and rock, and it also having the ability to exert fast move pressure as a ground type. It gives it a lot of play into all of the Pokemon in this meta, so I feel like it makes for either a very good safe swap or a very good lead, or something that you could use just to generate somewhere to get an advantage, right? And then set up the rest of your team for success. another B-rated team, but the coverage and bulk on this one are not going to be as good as the Mandibuzz Toxapex score, but of course pretty ridiculous. But the nice thing here is that this whole team has incredible play into the top meta when you're also using that Quagsire safe swap to draw something out like a flyer like Mandibuzz or Drifblim, or you're able to use it to either hopefully get switched in most other situations because it just does so well into almost everything else, right? And so by doing that, we're hopefully freeing up the Gastrodon, but also, you know, you lure out a Mandibuzz or something. That's good news for Gastrodon. So that's what you want to use, a safer, flexible Pokemon as your pivot, and then you can use the more inflexible ones like Gastrodon to be able to close up a match with. So threats as far as this team's concerned, none of those look particularly threatening to me. Yeah, sure, this team does not amazing into a Gastrodon by itself, but that's where you can start using some like team effort, right? And you can also think about flipping your Alolan Ninetales to Charm if the meta flips that way as well. So let's take a look at another team here in this Galar Cup. Now, the next one we have here, this is going to be a Galarian Weezing team. Now, I would say that Jellicent, out of all the things on this list, are the ones that you could probably opt to change for something a little bit better into things like Drapion, which are I expect to be very common. But we have the Jellicent here because if you do win the lead with that Weezing, it is an entirely dominant counter swap into something like a Toxapex or Quillfish. And even a lot of ground types it has play into. Now that Surf, even though it does cost more energy, also does more damage. So you get to those Surfs quicker, and sometimes you're going to want to go for multiple Surfs, and that also allows you to deal with like neutral things as well. So we're going to have the Weezing on the lead to play out leads, and then we don't really see as much safe swapping on this team, right? Because you want to be able to use your Weezing to just kind of set up advantage because it's so flexible with Brutal Swing, Player Offer. You could even pack Overheat on it if you want to. Run Sludge for those opposing fairy types if you don't want to deal with those either. But as far as threats goes, again, another very good team with coverage. Lantern, Golisopod, and Glalie. The only things on the whole meta that beat the whole team. And then you're not really going to have, again, you're just, like, Weezing is just so good into everything, you'll be able to do something with it, guaranteed. So let's talk about another team here. We're getting to the point now where we're talking about a little bit more spice, right? So Drifblim, again, this could definitely be something that you swap out. Maybe you see a lot of Abomasnows, or you're seeing a lot more like Mandibuzz. Maybe you want to opt for a safer flyer. Any flyer is going to be okay in Drifblim's place. However, we're using Thunderfang, Steelix, and preferably Shadow just because it does the extra damage there. And there's not a whole lot of like really, you know, you're trying to get the ground types out. So if you wanted to use something else like a poison type as well, like I feel like Steelix in general is going to be good at grabbing out the water and ground types, or it's what it's mostly going to be geared for. And then you can use your Gastrodon or your Diggersby to sweep. I think it's just really playing on the flyer ground core is really where the core of this team is coming from here. So the bulk, safety, and consistency are solid Bs, but the coverage is not going to be as great because, again, these aren't as top of the meta rankings Pokemon as we had been seeing, aside from, I mean, Diggersby, but, right? So we're trying to find some other things that might work here. And the threats list on this one's quite a bit longer. This is basically I pray that I don't see Pangoro ever. That's basically what it is. Machamp isn't going to be great either because if it lands at Stone Edge, you are going to have to say goodbye to your Drifblim. But in general, I think if you play the 2s out against opposing Machamp, you're going to be fine. Abomasnow, right? Ice types, Malamar could be an issue, right? Like those are the only things though on this list that I see as potential actual issues. And again, you're just kind of hoping that these Pokemon aren't as common because not, you know, 3 of them do terribly into the Toxapex, which is going to be very common. And Malamar is going to have to be constantly scared of Drapion and Mandibuzz. So you may not see them as much, at least at first. This team has a lot of play in the meta. So let's get to the last team here, wrapping it up with an Abomasnow team of our own. Now, I just talked about Malamar and Abomasnow, right? They're on that team against that team as core breakers. So let's throw them on this team. And what we've done here is created a team with a Malamar lead, very neutral, very safe lead. You could do this with, for example, if you wanted to, you could do it like a Mandibuzz. You could do it with things that are very neutral into a lot of the meta that can win a lot of leads. And then you have an Abomasnow Toxapex core in the back to be able to get favorable alignment if not only do you win lead, but also if you are able to force the opponent to swap out you have that alignment play that you can use to neutralize a lot of threats. Because I think Abomasnow is a very underrated Pokemon in this meta. It's going to be really, really solid if it gets a chance to cook. Toxapex is a little bit painful into this team, but I would say with confidence that Malamar does win the 2-shield scenario. So if you see one on the lead, it's okay to play that out. Most opponents aren't going to want to stay in on that matchup because they're taking a lot of damage from those Psy waves. Drapion is a little bit more uncomfortable. Again, that would definitely be something that you'd have to be wary of. I think that this team is only going to do well if Drapion starts to wane away from the meta, because everything on this team like has play into it, so you could definitely team effort it. Also note that, you know, typically you're not going to see Sludge Bomb on the Drapions in the Great League, so Abomasnow might be a little bit safer there as well. But Drapion, Skuntank, and Charjabug are the top on only things that beat this whole team on paper. So again, another very good coverage-wise team, and I think that if Abomasnow really does find a chance to be able to cook, it's going to put its chef hat on, and it's just going to start flipping snow patties all over. You know how it goes with Abomasnow. You know, he puts on that best snowman apron, and he gets to work. Anyway, y'all have a good one. Hopefully you enjoy the Galar Cup. Let me know in the comments what team you are looking to run this week in the Galar Cup, or if you're just going to play Great League because you don't want to try the Galar Cup, and that's all good. I hope y'all have success, and we'll catch you in the next video. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.